Welcome to Vietnam. In this video, we're going to be tuning in to the fascinating world of Vietnamese TV. From war programming, communist cartoons to bizarre and wonderful shows, this is the incredible story of a nation's history told through its TV screens. Vietnam today has one of the most controlled media landscapes in the world. Private TV channels are not allowed, and all of the 200 channels are controlled by the government. This is an incredible story, and it's never been told before. So, let's tell it now. Get comfortable, because this is television in Vietnam. So first, a brief history on Vietnam, which it's fair to say has been turbulent. The modern saga started with French colonial rule in the 19th century, which spread resistance across the country. Nationalist Ho Chi Minh formed the Indo-Chinese Communist Party in 1930. After World War II, he declared independence, but France fought back until its defeat in 1945. This split Vietnam into two: the communist North Vietnam and the US-backed capitalist South Vietnam. The Vietnam War followed in the 1960s, which was a Cold War proxy conflict. US involvement peaked at over 500,000 troops, but despite brutal tactics, the US was unable to conquer North Vietnam. By 1973, the US withdrew, another triumph in US foreign policy. North Vietnam quickly captured Saigon in 1975 and reunified the whole country under communism. It's estimated that between 2 and 3.8 million civilians and military personnel died during the Vietnam War. After the war, harsh socialism caused economic woes and isolation, but by the mid-80s, reforms had embraced market economics while keeping the Communist Party monopoly. So TV began in Vietnam in the 1960s with South Vietnam's Saigon station, which started broadcasting in 1966. North Vietnam followed shortly afterwards in the 1970s and was aided by Cuba. After reunification, the Communist Party imposed unified state control. All media, including TV, became government-owned. Saigon TV morphed into Ho Chi Minh City Television, always good to name a TV channel after yourself, while Vietnam Television, VTV, broadcast nationally. Today, over 200 channels exist, and they are all state-managed, serving as the party's voice with strict censorship to curb dissent. So, now you know the history, should we watch some TV? Let's do it! TV was just much calmer in the 60s and 70s, wasn't it? So in order to tell this story, we have to first tell the story of South Vietnamese TV, then North Vietnamese TV. So let's kick off with South. Nàng ấy bằng lòng theo tôi, không cuộc đời tâm tôi chứ tôi. South Vietnam started broadcasting in 1966, and its output mostly focused on news, documentaries, and broadcasting cultural performances such as this one.
Em không muốn anh giết người, em không muốn anh gây tội ác. Cấm lắm.
One of the most popular early broadcasts on South Vietnamese TV were live performances of plays and operas, and these guys were the most famous of them all. They're Duong Tai Long Tai Na, translated as the Tai Na Opera Group, one of the most well-known performance groups in South Vietnam, and they provided many of the early TV broadcasts. In this clip you're watching from the late 1960s, they're performing a classic play called In the Middle of the Red Dust, which explores themes of life, love and human struggles in the red dust. The red dust means the secular mortal world in Buddhist and literary traditions. See, don't say you don't learn anything from these videos. These performances are all very traditional and they love the opportunity to burst into song. super quick pause in this video because I want to tell you about something that has been an absolute game changer for my online setup. This is Private Internet Access, or PIA for short. They're sponsoring this video, and honestly, if you're not using a VPN yet, you're basically leaving your door open to the internet, which is a bit terrifying. So look, browsing online without protection is like sending a postcard with all your secrets written on it. Anyone along the way can read it. Your laptop, your phone, whatever device you're on is constantly sharing data that hackers, your ISP, or even nosy networks can snoop on. That's where PIA comes in. It is a super straightforward app that hides your IP address and wraps your entire connection in an encrypted tunnel, keeping your info locked down tight. Whether you're on public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop, an airport, or even at home, hackers can easily grab your passwords, keystrokes, or personal stuff if you're not protected. PIA shields all of that by routing your traffic through their top-tier servers. It's like having bulletproof armor for your data. So I've been using it myself, and honestly, it is the best VPN there is. But it's not just about security. PIA lets you bypass those annoying geo restrictions too. Streaming services like Netflix, Disney+, Amazon Prime have different shows depending where you are. So I can stream my favourite show, The Office US with Steve Carell, on Netflix here in the UK. But if you're watching this in the US, you'd have to buy a whole new subscription to a whole new platform just to watch it. But with PIA, you can just switch your country and get watching. And yeah, it works seamlessly with all major streaming platforms. And just one subscription covers an unlimited amount of devices. Seriously, protect your whole family or all your gadgets worldwide without extra fees. And PIA is the most transparent VPN out there with over 30 million downloads. They have a strict no logs policy that's been proven in court multiple times, so they never store or record your data. And here's the icing on the cake. For Joshua Perry Parker viewers, PIA has hooked it up with an exclusive deal. You can snag an 83% discount, bringing it down to just $2.03 a month, plus you'll get 4 extra months completely free. So head over to piavpn.com/Joshua Perry Parker to grab that offer and start protecting your online world today. And now, back to the video.
Muốn nợ hả? Nợ nói gì nha, ngươi biết rồi.
Okay, so after being flatly rejected by her, she's quite a character, isn't she? He attempts to serenade her. And with a singing voice like that, I don't think he's in with much of a shot. You have to admire these live early broadcasts from South Vietnamese TV. I kind of love how authentic and traditional they are. Unlike North Vietnamese TV, which we'll look at in a moment, South Vietnam was not as overt in the political nature of its coverage. It pretty much steered clear of broadcasting outright war propaganda, instead focusing on happy, wholesome and cultural content, all designed to show South Vietnam as happy, successful and prosperous, such as this broadcast from 1975, made just before the fall of Saigon. This was shown before the New Year's celebrations and was likely made by an American broadcast company. And as you can see, everything is happy and fine. Looking at this footage, you wouldn't think that this was a country that had been at war for the past 10 years with millions of deaths, and well, that is exactly the point of this footage. As well as Saigon TV, there was in fact another very popular TV channel broadcasting in South Vietnam at the time, and that was the American Forces Vietnam Network, or AFVN. Because while stationed there, the Americans set up their own TV channel to serve and entertain American soldiers who were working in the South at the time. One of its key outputs was news, as seen in this clip from 1973.
Good evening. The International Commission of Control and Supervision, nearly a week behind schedule in getting truce teams into the field, announced that Vietnam observers will begin duties Monday at 7 regional locations specified in the Paris Peace Agreement. Fighting in South Vietnam continued to slow, and the Saigon command this morning reported no major battles for the first time since the ceasefire.
AFVN was a morale-boosting lifeline for US troops, delivering 24/7 radio and TV programming that included American music, entertainment, news, public service announcements, and, crucially, command information to keep soldiers informed, connected to home, and entertained amid the stresses of combat. Particularly popular with soldiers in South Vietnam at the time was Bobby, the weather girl.
River northeast of Quang Tri.
Good evening out there, weather friends. Taking a look how the home folk have been across our nation this evening, we find that rain seemed to be the rule throughout most of our nation, with shower and thunderstorm activity hitting most of the nation's midsection.
Bobby became a bit of a legend in Vietnam for reasons that I'll leave you to deduce, and she would give the weather both in Vietnam and back home in the US.
Once again reported down our Pacific coastline continues to be sticky and humid, high at 99. Out around the Da Nang area continues to be rather hot and humid, 9-day high at 98. That's the way the weather has been for this part of the program. Now for you lucky fellows planning to go on your leave or R&R soon, we'll be right back to sock those temps to you.
As well as Bobby dancing and generally entertaining the troops, AFVN would also broadcast popular American shows such as Gunsmoke and Hawaii 5-0. I'm told, in fact, that many across South Vietnam tuned in to AFVN even if they couldn't speak the language. But now it's time to change frequency and tune in to communist North Vietnam. While the South and the United States flooded airways with their subtle TV propaganda, North Vietnam had none. 0 screens, 0 stations. Seeing the power of television, Ho Chi Minh pressurized his officials to introduce TV in the North, and quickly. He sent his team to the Soviet Union and Cuba to learn how to launch a TV channel of his own. And in 1970, VOV, the Voice of Vietnam, started broadcasting in the North. And its content was focused almost entirely on promoting communist values and North Vietnamese spirit during the war. The show you're watching now was one of the most early broadcasts, and it was shown repeatedly throughout the 1970s. This is No Song Non Sa, a 1967 North Vietnamese documentary that translates to At the Crest of the Waves. Filmed in 1965, this 20-minute black and white documentary follows ordinary fishermen braving US naval blockades, mines and aerial bombings just to bring food home.
Với chúng tôi, biển cả chẳng còn gì bí hiểm.
Guys, this is an incredible documentary. It shows villagers turning nets into weapons and boats into fortresses to fight off US troops. This film became a symbol of North Vietnam's unbreakable spirit and was shown regularly on North Vietnamese TV and in particular on national holidays. Honestly, the footage in this is incredible, and even if you didn't have a TV screen, this was actually shown on mobile projection screens in fishing villages, factories and mines. For a generation growing up under bombardment, this film wasn't just entertainment. It was proof that even civilians on the front line, ordinary fishermen, could fight and win the war. In fact, this was mandatory viewing in many communal settings, like village halls, military bases and workplaces. A common practice in North Vietnam to boost morale during the war. If you were alive in 1970s in North Vietnam, you saw this film hundreds and hundreds of times.
Đế quốc Mỹ, bọn lái súng giàu sụ mà chưa thỏa lòng tham.
This is Louis Thep Vinh Linh, another North Vietnamese documentary that was filmed in 1967 in the Vinh Linh district. It documents civilian life under constant US air and artillery attacks. The film is again incredible. It shows villagers farming in bomb craters, families and children living in underground bunkers, and the sustaining resistance through the Vinh Linh Moc Tunnel network. Again, the footage is breathtaking.
Trương Thị Khuê, một cô thợ cấy giỏi, đã trở thành anh hùng đánh máy bay phản lực siêu âm Mỹ.
This documentary is particularly poignant because its three cinematographers were killed in February 1968 when their vehicle was struck by US missiles. Local villagers managed to rescue their tapes from the wreckage, and this is the footage you're watching now. Pretty incredible, isn't it? This again was shown a lot on North Vietnamese TV in the early 70s, and in particular during national holidays and in educational programs. It remains a key archival record of North Vietnamese civilian resistance. Okay, so I know this video has been pretty heavy on war stuff and propaganda, apart from the occasional dodgy opera broadcast in the south. At this point in these videos, I'm usually showing you early sitcoms and variety shows, but to be honest, there's none of that to show you. Almost all of the broadcasts up to 1975 in Vietnam was this stuff. Documentaries, newsreel, footage on wars. And, well, I guess this isn't surprising, given that this was a country that was at war for so long in its history. But the end is nigh, because after US troops withdrew and Saigon fell, the country was reunified under Ho Chi Minh, and as we enter the 1980s, we enter a new chapter in Vietnamese TV. Loving this ident. So, one of the most iconic and important shows made in the 1970s and 80s was this one. This is Ning Bong Han Hoa, which translates to Little Flowers, and it's a children's variety show that was produced by Vietnam Television VTV. It first began as a 15 to 30 minute program airing at 7 PM directly before the evening news, and it features songs, stories, games, animations, and educational segments. Let's watch a bit of it now. So, all of the episodes of Little Flowers kind of look the same. It pretty much features kids performing, or in this case pretending to. He's not actually hitting those, we can tell. And it's all designed to be very cultural, very wholesome, and to celebrate Vietnamese heritage. So So while this show may not seem the most entertaining show, just watching some kids miming, it was hugely popular, and I guess that's because, well, firstly, it was one of the only children's shows there was in Vietnam, so you were going to watch it anyway, and also because if you were a kid, it was probably quite nice to see other kids on TV performing. I guess it kind of reminds me of Blue Peter in the UK, which I was also not a massive fan of. Here's a later episode from the 1990s, although from these graphics it kind of looks more early 80s, and this show features an adult performing, and, well, look at this. So this guy's whole act is that he can make animal noises. No, really.
Meow, meow, meow,
Have these kids not suffered enough without having to watch this? I love this. Look how unimpressed they all look.
Như là loại gia cầm ở trong gia đình.
Right, shall we move on, because this guy does a whole 20 minutes of this. One of the better things that did air during Little Flowers was cartoons. One of the great things about cartoons is that they often contain no dialogue, and this allowed Vietnam to import and show cartoons from across the Soviet Union. During the 70s and 80s, hundreds of Soviet cartoons became super popular in Vietnam. This one is called How the Cossacks Played Football, and it was made by a Ukrainian film studio. So this cartoon tells the story about the Cossacks on screen deciding that they want to win a football championship in England, and their journey of how they get prepared to conquer the English. So as a cartoon, this is really well made, it's funny, there's great animation, and it's well worth a watch. So after the Cossacks have beaten off several European countries, they finally arrive in England, where they play their final match to win the cup. Yes, in England we all play football wearing top hats. This is a great cartoon. It's been raining so much the pitch has turned into a swimming pool, and they showed the scores on Big Ben. I love the creativity of this show. It's a fantastic cartoon, and I can completely see why Vietnamese kids absolutely fell in love with Soviet cartoons. I can't emphasise just how important and loved this show was in Vietnam, so much so that it actually still airs today, because this show was vital as one of Vietnam's very first dedicated children's programmes. Away from the tragedy and heartbreak of the war, this show captivated generations when there were limited TV options. Culturally, it fosters nostalgia, innocence and community. And it shaped childhood memories for those born in the 80s and 90s. Now, politically, as a socialist-era product, it also promoted patriotism, collectivism and national development. The whole show kind of subtly aligned with the Communist Party resolutions on education and child welfare. Interestingly, TV dramas and soap operas didn't really exist in Vietnam until well into the 1990s. Now, this was because of several factors. There were technical constraints, as most broadcasts were live, there was economic hardship, but basically the communist government prioritised essential infrastructure over entertainment production. As you've seen so far in this video, TV was mostly created to emphasise ideological education, news and collectivist values values, rather than producing pure escapist fiction as you would see in TV dramas and soap operas. However, the Vietnamese movie industry in the 1970s and 80s was booming, and it was actually really impressive. Now, this was because of state funding, but was also because the government, which of course owned and ran all of the film studios in Vietnam, saw movies as a brilliant way to rebuild unity after the war. What followed was a huge number of war movies, all signed off by the state, which were frequently shown on Vietnamese TV. One of the most well-known and best ones is this. This is Can Dong Hoan, translated as The Abandoned Field Free Fire Zone. It was made in 1979 and it follows a guerrilla couple and their child surviving in a flooded free fire zone amid relentless US helicopter attacks and bombings. This movie is so well made and it has fantastic production values. One of the things that makes this movie so good is that it uses a helicopter eye view to depict life during the Vietnam War. It shows the helicopter view as a contrast to the human stories on the ground. Some of the scenes are incredibly well made, but really unsettling. Honestly guys, this movie is brilliant, and look, I know it was made by the communist government and I know it's propaganda, but come on, this is still a really well made, brilliantly produced and just pretty much incredible movie. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it before, you find a subtitle version and watch it now. So, back to television now, and this is Nang Thang Poi, translated as City People. And this was the very first Vietnamese drama made for television. So the plot follows a soldier who is on leave from the battlefield who returns to Hanoi and gets lost in the city. A local girl guides him through the streets, which helps him realise that his sacrifices that he's making during war are meaningful, and that they protect peace and normal life for countless civilians. Throughout the series, the peaceful tranquility of city life is contrasted with the fighting. So this one is actually a bit boring, and the propaganda from the government on this one was actually a bit too much on the nose, but it was groundbreaking because it was Vietnam's first TV drama that was filmed on videotape, and it was created with minimal resources. There were just 3 crew members, and their camera was donated by UNICEF and was originally intended for making educational family planning videos. Anyway, this show was massively successful and it marked the dawn of significant Vietnamese TV production. And so we move on to the final part of this video in the 90s and the noughties, which is when TV really took off in Vietnam. I love these graphics. So, it was in the 1990s that Vietnam got its very first TV quiz show. This is O Na Chunat, translated as Sunday at Home, and this was one of the first homegrown family game shows in Vietnam. So, each week, 2 families compete in fun, practical challenges. The show included Vietnamese humour and real prizes that mattered in the early market economy years. So, prizes people actually needed. Things like rice cookers, bicycles, fans and small cash sums.
Chúng ta sẽ lần lượt làm quen với 3 gia đình và bây giờ thì sẽ là sự giới thiệu của gia đình số 2.
So let's meet this morning's contestants and check out this guy desperately trying to control his child and keep him in shot.
Thành viên thứ nhất đó là chồng tôi, anh Nguyễn Anh Tuấn. Năm nay anh 28 tuổi. Sở thích của anh là bóng đá, đọc báo và nghe ca nhạc.
Yeah, let him go, mate. It's not going to work. So this show aired every Sunday morning and quickly became appointment viewing across Vietnam.
Còn thành viên thứ ba, quan trọng nhất trong gia đình của chúng tôi, đó là cháu Nguyễn Hoàng.
So the format is pretty simple. Each family watches a short video clip that ends with a true or false question. And all of the questions revolve around family knowledge. So the questions are about everyday things, from childcare to electrical repairs to household appliances. They are extremely practical and quite boring questions. The families then turn the head on this weird puppet thing to indicate whether it is true or false.
Nhà bố anh.
Lúc này thì gia đình số 1 là có một ý kiến là mặt đỏ.
Okay, so look, this is not the world's most exciting game show, but in terms of Vietnamese TV, it was hugely important because it marked the birth of bright, light, consumer-orientated entertainment. It proved that local productions could be made in Vietnam and perform well in the ratings. For many families, it was the first time that TV felt interactive and rewarding, and it helped to normalise the idea of game shows, paving the way for an explosion of similar formats in the 2000s. Another massively iconic game show is this one. This is Đường Đến Đỉnh Olympia, translated as the road to Mount Olympia. And this theme tune is awesome. So this show is a high-intensity academic quiz show for 16-year-old high school students. So in each episode, 4 contestants from different provinces across Vietnam compete in multiple rounds that cover maths, literature, history, science, English and general knowledge. Now, the winner of the show receives a scholarship and the iconic laurel wreath. The ultimate annual champion of the show wins a full international university scholarship.
Bạn Vinh, không biết là bạn có hồi hộp không? Bạn chính là người lựa chọn đầu tiên.
Bức ảnh trên chụp 2 nhà vật lý kiệt xuất đã có công đặt nền móng cho vật lý học hiện đại, đang quan sát chuyển động của một con quay.
So the first round is general knowledge, and this question is saying the man on the right of this picture proposed the first model of quantum physics. Who is it? Answers in the comments, lads. I haven't got a clue.
Đó là nhà bác học Rutherford.
Rutherford. Vâng, chúng tôi đang nhìn thấy các bạn ở Thanh Hóa. Xin anh Thanh Tùng hãy mời các bạn ở Thanh Hóa sẽ cùng trả lời câu hỏi này.
What's really nice about this show is you'll see from all of these cutaway shots that each of the contestants have their hometowns cheering them on.
Đó chính là một câu trả lời hoàn toàn chính xác. Xin chúc mừng các đồng đội của bạn Nguyễn Thành Vinh. Và bạn đã giành được một phần thưởng của mình.
Okay, so on to her question. This question says, which king had 2 son-in-laws who were both of the 4 immortals in which Vietnamese pantheon? Gonna be honest, not sure I even understand the question, but hey, she seems smart. So the show continues with various academic quiz questions, and then at the end, ladies and gentlemen, we have our winner of the university scholarship. This show is hugely important and is still today Vietnam's longest running and most prestigious quiz show. It instantly became a national institution, and in the late 1990s and 2000s, it inspired millions of students to study harder, turned provincial schools into local celebrities when their student qualified, and created the phrase Đến Olympia as shorthand for academic excellence. Entire towns would stop and watch their contestant, and the laurel wreath remains one of the most recognised symbols of teenage achievement in Vietnam.
Và các bạn thân mến, vòng nguyệt quế chiến thắng sẽ được đặt lên đầu người chiến thắng ngay bây giờ. Chúng tôi xin trân trọng kính mời Phó Thủ tướng.
The show still airs on television today, with dramatic graphics and music, but the fundamental principle is still the same. One of the really interesting things about Vietnamese game shows, particularly in the early days, is that they weren't about mass consumerism or about winning big prizes. They were about family, about everyday knowledge and academic education, where the top prize was not £1 million or a car, but a university scholarship. In a way, it was much more wholesome than what was being shown in the West at the time, although today modern Vietnamese game shows of course have a tad more capitalism thrown in.
Và ở đâu trên khắp ruộng đồng gò bãi chẳng mang một dáng hình, một ao ước, một lối sống ông cha là đúc kết của nhà thơ nào.
As we move to the final part of this video on modern TV in Vietnam, we're going to look at some of the biggest shows today. This is Siêu Tre Tour Vietnam, translated as Super Intellect Vietnam, and this reality competition, now in its 7th season, consistently tops national charts and is watched by tens of millions of people every week. Now, this talent show is quite different, and I've never seen anything quite like it. It features contestants with extraordinary intellectual talents, such as superhuman memory, rapid calculations, or puzzle solving. For some reason, they've stolen the chairs from The Voice. This is a prime-time show, airing weekly on Saturday evenings. In this particular episode, the contestant is a computer coding cum maths wizard, and the whole hour is him competing in various coding-based challenges. No, this really is prime-time entertainment. So our contestant is cracking multiple coding challenges, and then the celebrity judges afterwards are reacting. Now, even if I spoke Vietnamese, I still don't think I could tell you what's going on here, but needless to say, this guy clearly has fantastic coding and math skills. I absolutely love all of the dramatic music and camera effects as we watch this guy try to crack the code. I didn't think I'd like this show, but actually it's quite good. Anyway, this genius has won, and this is why I love doing this YouTube series. Discovering TV shows like this, it is so fascinating. And what's brilliant about Vietnam is this show, not focused on dancing or appearances or singing, actually beats Vietnam's Got Talent and The Voice Vietnam in the ratings. Today, TV in Vietnam is booming and is by far the country's biggest and most consumed form of media, although online streaming is rapidly catching it up. And its media landscape looks similar to any other modern country. Sitcoms like this one are popular. This is Cali Chong Nam Mai Pho, translated as Cali, inside the streets, outside the streets. And this is a Vietnamese sitcom that's actually made by a Vietnamese production company in California. It tells the story of the comedic misadventures of a group of Vietnamese immigrants navigating life in California. And it's fair to say that Vietnamese humour is a little bit over the top. Episodes of this show are particularly popular with Vietnam's overseas population, and it has millions and millions of views on YouTube, although I'm not exactly sure why. It's worth bearing in mind as we end this video that Vietnam has no media freedom. For example, the most TV news programme is this one, Poi Su, the flagship 7 PM bulletin on VTV1. First aired in the 1970s, this remains the primary source of daily news for millions and millions of households. All TV stations in Vietnam are either state-owned or under direct government supervision. There are no independent TV news channels. According to the 2025 Reporters Without Borders Freedom Index, Vietnam ranks 173rd out of 180 countries in terms of media freedom, reflecting severe restrictions on its press. TV news shows, including Poi Su, are not permitted to criticise the Communist Party of Vietnam or criticise any government policies. Content must align with the official directives. The Ministry of Information and Communications licenses and monitors all broadcast. The Communist Party's propaganda department, that's what it's actually called, issues weekly guidance on permissible topics, and Vietnamese law criminalises anybody making, storing, or spreading information against the state by locking them in prison for 20 years. In summary, while TV shows like this look modern and look like any other production, Vietnam TV news operates under full state control and basically serves as a government mouthpiece rather than any form of independent press. So, that was quite a journey, wasn't it? And Vietnam's TV history is unlike any other country we visited in this series. And I guess that's because Vietnam's history is like no other country, and its TV mirrors that. This is a country whose very first broadcasts weren't Vietnamese, but were American. And it's a country whose early TV production was almost solely focused on war and propaganda. Modern TV in Vietnam is hugely popular. Talent shows, music shows, game shows, there are hundreds and hundreds that I simply cannot cover in one video. And they are watched by not hundreds of thousands or millions of people, but by tens and tens of millions of people every day. And what's fascinating about the Communist Party of Vietnam is that it's much more subtle in how it controls the media. This is not North Korea, where every single broadcast is outright propaganda. But be under no doubt, the methods at work are the same. Every single TV programme, every single script is controlled by the government. Vietnamese TV may look bright, colourful and modern, but the sinister forces behind it are ancient, well-established, central, Communist Party control. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also become a channel member to help support the channel. We'll see you next time.